I thought to do a series called 108 Enlightenment Tips, or 108 Dharma exercises for awakening the mind to happiness and joy. This word enlightenment, Jangjub, in Tibetan, Bodhi in Sanskrit, has a number of meanings. The principal meaning is that the way we humans perceive things as processed through the senses and the brain is a kind of a reductionalism. And this reducing of reality to a very small series of images and pictures has the basic effect of isolating us from the world, giving a sense of separateness from the world, and eventually leaning toward duality consciousness, leading us into a duality consciousness. Or Bodhi in Sanskrit has the sense of things to do, how exercises to do, meditations to do, contemplations to do, awareness focuses to do, that break the spell of this sense of isolation, break the spell of this sense of duality. Jung having the sense of purifying the mind of the factors that come into play that make you and me distant objects. And Jub, a kind of an opening of consciousness to the natural unity and integrity of being. All of the different Buddhist masters over the centuries, beginning with Buddha himself and coming down through the great lineage gurus. In Mahayana Buddhism, we like to look to Nagarjuna as the most fabulous elucidator of Buddha's teachings in a kind of a structured way, because Buddha lived and taught. Buddha achieved enlightenment and then taught for 45 years. His teachings are very wide and variegated, sometimes speaking to uneducated people, sometimes to highly educated, sometimes to great mystics and meditators, other times to simple turnip farmers. And no negative reflection on turnips. And so we call Nagarjuna the second Buddha. So Nagarjuna says that the first great enlightenment tip is to always be relaxed and happy regardless of what's going on in your life. Now, obviously, if something's problematic in our life, being relaxed and happy doesn't seem like a completely natural response. But on the other hand, when we look at this basic human process of how we experience reality, the reality we are experiencing never exists in the manner of its appearance. In other words, it appears to us in a particular way depending on our conditioning and our education and our mood and so on and so forth. So when we take that appearance at face value, we basically are leading an illusory life or a deluded life for that segment of our time as a humanoid. So Nagarjuna's advice: be relaxed and happy regardless of what's going on in your life. And the Dalai Lama once said, if we can be relaxed and happy, even in very difficult times, rather than anxious and upset, we'll always make a more clear decision. So in some ways you could say this first enlightenment tip: always be relaxed and happy regardless of whether you're feeling discomfort over something, difficulty with something, challenged by something, threatened by something. One of the great early golden school masters of Tibet, Gyalwa Wensapa, who later became the later incarnations became the Panchen Lamas, once suggested that we try to have the mindset of the relaxed, happy, joyful warrior or warrioress. The warrior walks through the forest alone, fearless, enjoying the trees and the sky and the sounds of the birds and the flowing streams and so on. Now he knows, or she knows, that there are many dangers out there, but with full confidence of his or her ability to respond to them effectively, he or she walks stress-free, anxiety-free. In that same way, we go through our life with many trials and tribulations coming our way. There's no question about that. Birth, sickness, old age, death, coming and going of economic situations, relationship situations, and health situations. All of these factors come and go throughout the life of your average human being. And the first enlightenment tip is to always remain relaxed and happy regardless of what comes. That relaxed and happy mind will always bring a better result for you personally and for those around you. Otherwise, when we're anxious and stressed, we easily make negative decisions, and those negative decisions adversely affect those around us. We get angry, we get attached, and so on and so forth. And then from those negative mindsets come negative activities. A later Indian master, Shantideva, or Shivala in Tibetan, his Bodhicharya Avatara is one of the great Indian classics, once put it like this: if there is a problem and you can solve it, don't be upset. Just happily solve the problem. If there's a problem and it cannot be solved, don't be upset. Just learn to live with that situation. There's many things in life we cannot solve, many problems we cannot solve. Our height, perhaps, and the weather, and so on and so forth. Many things cannot be solved, but some things can be solved. And it's, well, either way, we should learn to have a relaxed, happy mind. Now, based on this happy mind, the happy mind is never angersome, because the angry mind, by very definition, is unhappiness. The happy mind is never attached or addicted to particular situations or thoughts or ideas, never stuck, and because that limitation again constricts our general relaxation and contributes to stress, anxiety, and worry. Similarly, the present Dalai Lama, who in his life has faced many, many adversities, his country invaded by the Chinese, and then having to come out as a refugee, living as a refugee, with the responsibility of preserving Tibetan culture in a third world country like India, and to try to also contribute to the world problems and the world problems of humanity. We can say he carries the weight of 100 great elephants in terms of what could be stressful and anxiety creating loads, but he himself always tries to remain relaxed and happy regardless of the situation. Even when we see him when he's had health problems, goes to hospital relaxed and happy. and every situation to try to solve those problems or those conditions in a relaxed, happy way. So this first enlightenment tip, learning to be relaxed and happy, really begins with a kind of a commitment to it, a commitment to that ideal. I think sometimes in modern society we become addicted to the adrenaline rush of drama, the sort of excitement and relief of the boredom created by a dualistic thinking or dualistic living. We become addicted to that kind of drama of negative emotion. So the commitment to a relaxed, happy mind is really the beginning of the enlightenment process. If the question arises on how from right now, right this moment, without any great spiritual training or meditative training, we can keep ourselves in that state of sort of relaxed joy. A simple technique suggested in the early Kadampa tradition, masters like Atisha and Lama Dromdumpa, is that from time to time during the day, we simply sit back for a moment or two, relax, put the mind on the breath, breathe in with joy and breathe out with joy, and try to heighten our sense of self-awareness. When this is done as a sort of a formal practice, we can do it with 21 breaths. Tibetans always carry little mantra malas, and they usually have a marker at 21. But breathing in, breathing out, thinking of the number, and thinking breathe in with joy, breathe out with joy. Without self-monitoring, we basically are stuck always surfing on the objects of the senses. We know lots about the world, but very little about ourselves. So knowledge of the self begins with occasional introspection exercises, you could say. Turning the mind inward. As Lama Govinda put it in his book Foundations of Tibetan Mysticism, turning about in the deepest seat of consciousness. But all that means on this level, in a very practical way, is that once an hour or so during the day, just do a simple 1-minute introspective application. Just sit back in your seat if you're at a car and stopped at a red light, or working in an office, or wherever you are. Just sit back and put the mind on the breath. Feel the flow of the breath. Observe the quality or the texture of your own consciousness. Breathe in with joy and breathe out with joy. So this is a very first step, you could say, in the yoga of happiness, the yoga of the happy mind, the yoga of Sugata, the voyage to happiness.
강가하니 흐른 산등 흩들어오던 수밀지지 하르기듯 하우틀러 탑질라서니 무릉골리고스 멜리리 팅큰 텔리리 팅큰 바이님이 기띠기친 유리도 절지테 이띠리 테리 힝우금 보러 한가에다 노타게 민데